Shalom, everybody. Back here with the Baal Sulam's Matan Torah, with commentary by Rabbi Abraham Mordechai Gottlieb. This is section 12, the bottom of page 83, and giving, as translated by Arya Siegel. Let's start off. The mitzvot were given only in order to gradually purify people from a nature of receiving to a nature of giving, and therefore love and compassion. How amazing would it be to start off one's education in Judaism by saying just this, that the goal is to love and to give and to unify humanity. Would have been more attractive to me, at least. In my upbringing, I was not such a fan of the idea of Judaism, but I digress. The Baal Sulam begins. And these are the words of our sages from Midrash Rabbah in Bereshit chapter 44, or Genesis. In their question, quote, what difference does it make to the Holy One if one slaughters from the throat or one slaughters from the back of the neck? After all, the mitzvot were given only in order to purify people. This purification constitutes the refinement of the muddied body, which is the ultimate aim that results from the fulfillment of all the Torah and mitzvot. Quote, a person is born a wild young donkey, from Eov, or Job 11:12. For from the moment that a person emerges and is born from the bosom of creation, the newborn is in a state of utmost contamination and degradation. As we've learned in a prior class, donkey, chamor, spelled the same way and has the same root as chomer, clay or raw material, being that our raw material is just that. The raw material of our being is that of a donkey, or is that of the will to receive from oneself alone. And we're here to refine that. We're born with that initial nature, and we're attempting to rise and work towards the second nature, the altruistic nature, the human and godly nature, as we are made in the image of the Creator. This state is defined by the exceedingly great degree of self-love that is imprinted in us. For all our movements are compelled to pivot around this self-regard without the slightest spark of altruism. In this way, we are as distant as can be from the root, completely at the opposite extreme. The root is entirely giving without even the slightest spark of receiving, whereas the newborn, that is the created being, is entirely in a state of receiving for itself without any spark of giving at all. Therefore, its position is discerned to be the bottom point of lowliness and contamination to be found in our human realm. Strong language, but the bitter truth. Let's read that inside again, and then read along with the Rebbe Shlita's commentary. The Baal Sulam says, and these are the words of our sages, as quoted from Midrash Rabbah in Bereshit chapter 44. In their question, quote, what difference does it make to the Holy One if one slaughters from the throat, from the back of the neck? The Rebbe Shlita says on this, our sages wondered why we are required to observe all the details of the mitzvot. And they took as an example the requirement regarding slaughter of animals for food. What's the difference to God whether we slaughter from the throat or from the back of the neck? The sages could just as well have asked regarding any mitzvah. For example, why have an etrog, or citron, on the festival of Sukkot instead of waving an avocado? I like avocados. Essentially, their question is whether the form of observance is an end in itself, or just the means to affect us in some way. If the form is an end in itself, then it's irrelevant as to why the mitzvah has a particular form. However, if the idea is that the mitzvot should have some effect, then it makes sense to ask whether there should be any difference if we should do them differently. And the answer of the sages is that the mitzvot are a means and not an end. And really, it is insignificant to God whether slaughter is from the throat or from the nape. But the mitzvot are indeed intended to purify us. That is, to cleanse us from the contamination of self-love. And the form that God set for the mitzvot is the best means for purifying people. The form in itself is insignificant, but all its importance derives from its effect on purifying us. However, we do not have the freedom to determine for ourselves what should be the form of the mitzvot. For the one from whom emanated the creation determined how best to refine the creation, how the mitzvot can light up our souls and can free us from the nature of self-love. This is a big contrast to any form of Judaism that's not considered Torah Judaism or Orthodox Judaism, so to speak, because all other branches are in relation to the exacting system to refine oneself and achieve the goal of their purpose in life and their personal correction. We are to be exacting as best as we can, slowly but surely, in all of our journeys, to take on and perform the Torah and the mitzvot, both in intention and in action. Where other branches make claim and do what's comfortable and try to, unfortunately, reform in a way that fits in with their will to receive for themselves alone. We should ask ourselves how we fit into Judaism, not how Judaism fits into us. The Rabbi Shita continues, the deeper truth is that each form of the mitzvot is precisely determined by its spiritual roots in higher worlds. And it is not at all incidental or insignificant. The whole system of the worlds is arranged for this purpose, that each of us can perfect our souls and become a chariot for the revelation of God. They are not imaginings, but spirituality, ways of being that have no time or place or form. They are a wondrous variety of spiritual levels whose central theme is the revelation of God in differing hues, measures, and aspects. The central point of the Kabbalah is the connection between the spiritual worlds and daily life. I think it's important to note that the spiritual worlds are not places. No one's flying to Mars or Jupiter and the like. Spiritual worlds are states of consciousness, these levels of receiving to receive, giving to receive, giving to give, and receiving to give. Therefore, all the worlds, all the different delineations of consciousness, even angels, as we describe them in the wisdom, are all aspects of you and I. They're aspects of our consciousness. Everything is within us. Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah. It's not somewhere we're going to, rather it's a state of being we reveal within. Hence, connecting these spiritual worlds in daily life, and reality is saying, unveiling these higher states of being, these more divine qualities within us into our daily life, revealing the love and the giving and the compassion within, and serving from that place, even to the most minute details. The Rabbi Shita continues, when we begin spiritual work, we need help from heaven And this help comes by fulfillment of the mitzvot. As we begin to understand the spiritual roots of the mitzvot, we can draw down the light of God's revelation that will assist us in achieving the desired effect of the mitzvot, the purification of the soul. Understandably, as time has progressed, there's also been shifts in certain laws. For example, the fact that technology has come up into our world, into our lives, that the great rabbis who decide on Jewish law, the poskim, have made decisions as to where certain things fall and how to consider technology and the like in the system of Torah and mitzvot and its laws. But to the point of what the Rebbe Shita is saying here, that everything has a spiritual root. Everything, without exception. Everything you see in this world, let alone every action and every detail of the Torah, mitzvot, and its halacha, has a root above. So to say, I'd like to do this and not that. It's one thing to say, I will eventually take such and such on because I'm growing. That's perfectly healthy and perfectly fine. And hopefully everyone has a true rabbi to connect to. True rabbi, as we've spoken about, is someone who's giving and refined and has no desire to receive it themselves, and is at least aiming for the truth if they haven't yet achieved the truth of correcting their own soul. If we're looking for spiritual guidance, we need a spiritual master, not a master on law or a master on the Talmud. If you have a question on Talmud, ask the Talmud master. If you have a question on Jewish law, ask the expert. If you have a question on your inner work and how to refine yourself according to your path, find the spiritual master. Find the tzaddik, the righteous person, and connect to that as best as you can. It's incumbent on us. Just as the Jewish people had Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron Cohen, and all the leaders, the chieftains of the tribes, it branched down, but there was leaders. There was who to defer to. It's very, very important also to practice giving, to practice nullifying the self, mivateling, as we say in Hebrew. We want to do X, Y, and Z, but to seek the guidance of someone who's, relatively speaking, more in line with the characteristic of the Creator and is closer in Dveikus with the Creator, we want to ask such a person. I think a beautiful example, a mashal, of the value of the minute details in Judaism and why it is important to take note and to keep them. Relationship connotes responsibility. The New Age movement, I myself having been a part of it before coming back to my roots and taking on a Torah lifestyle, sometimes would pray to the universe as opposed to whatever notion I had of the Creator. We believe that reality is not something separate from the Creator. Creator is reality. There's nothing but divine reality at all times. There's just many coverings that we hopefully will slowly but surely unveil to see and feel the godly reality. And if not, to see and feel, in the meantime, to believe wholeheartedly that that's the case. Point being is that it's an interesting insight I had recently. To pray to the universe is no responsibility. Relationships connote responsibility. And to have a relationship and say, this is my God. We are His people. We are soldiers. We have a service. We have a job. We have work to do. That's a big load. It's the biggest burden we could ask for. It's a lifetime of work. And that could be bitter. As opposed to the universe. The universe doesn't ask anything of me. What I put in is what I get. Everything's just flowing and it's all good. And there's truth to that. It says that Hashem leads us where we want to go. If you want to do X, Y, and Z, He'll help us out. He'll bring us there. But why it says here that we need help from heaven in our spiritual work. If we want Dveikus, if we want refinement, if we want to do the work, He'll bring us there. We will get siyata d'shmaya, heavenly help. But the example is, A couple is on a 20-year anniversary dinner. Husband brings his wife to the same restaurant they went to on their first date. The napkins are the same design, same cup, the same bottle of wine from the same year even. They order the same food, they somehow get the same chef, so on and so forth. And the wife appreciates so much these minute details that he remembered and took care to happen, took care to make it part of the experience. So too in our experience as we do Torah and mitzvot and uphold it, how much more so do these minor details of the halacha would bring joy to the Creator. We say we want to come to a state of loving the Creator. We want to come to a state of altruism. It would only make sense that we would take care to keep the minute details, just like in this anniversary date, in order to give nachat ruach, to give a spirit of pleasantness above, and therefore causing waves in the upper worlds, being the internal system that integrates all of humanity, which connects us all together, slowly but surely, until we're literally one again, because we're all just fragments of one soul.